And we are getting a much clearer picture tonight of what led to President Trump's order to take military action against Syria. Last night, the world saw those missiles, the strike in Syria, more than 50 Tomahawk missiles, fired from 2 destroyers in the Mediterranean. It came just 2 days after the horrific chemical attack on families, so many children among the victims. The missiles targeting this Syrian airbase. U.S. officials say they have proof the plane that dropped that toxic gas was a Syrian fighter jet that took off from right there. And tonight, Russia, which had supported Syria and Bashar al-Assad with a warning for the U.S. and for President Trump. And now comes word tonight that Syrian planes are now taking off from that airfield all over again. ABC's chief global affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz leading us off.
Under the cover of darkness, dozens of U.S. Tomahawk cruise missiles fired into Syria from 2 Navy warships in the Mediterranean, raining down on the Shayrat airbase where the Syrian plane carrying those chemical weapons had taken off. The cruise missiles already launched as the president was wrapping up his first dinner with the Chinese president at Mar-a-Lago. Hours earlier, aboard Air Force One, President Trump had signaled to the world that military action against Syria was a strong possibility.
I think what happened in Syria is a disgrace to humanity. And he's there, and I guess he's running things, so something should happen.
Soon after landing in Florida, the president would give his commanders the green light. The Pentagon using military channels to let the Russians know this was not an attack on their troops and aircraft in Syria. But did the Russians then warn the Syrian forces, with witnesses claiming they quickly moved equipment and personnel ahead of the attack? Syrian television showing what it said was the U.S. assault in the distance. Syrian officials claiming at least 7 were killed. The Pentagon says it struck all 59 of its targets, destroying at least 20 Syrian aircraft, air defense systems, radar, and ammunition supply bunkers. Once those missiles fell, the president huddled with his national security team to assess the damage. The retaliation coming just 60 hours after the world saw the first horrific images of that chemical attack, images that pushed the president to act.
Tonight I ordered a targeted military strike on the airfield in Syria from where the chemical attack was launched.
The Pentagon providing evidence it says shows Assad was behind the war crime, the flight path data of the Syrian warplane. And tonight, the U.S. military looking into whether the Russians knew about that chemical attack or assisted in any way. Today at the United Nations, Ambassador Nikki Haley warned that the U.S. could strike again.
The United States took a very measured step last night. We are prepared to do more.
So let's bring in Martha Raddatz live in Washington. And Martha, we're learning tonight as we come on that the Russians have now suspended the hotline that had been set up between the Russians and the Pentagon involving aircraft over Syria.
That's right, David. That hotline was set up to do what is called deconflict the aircraft flying missions over Syria. We coordinate so the U.S. and Russian aircraft don't basically run into each other, but there are radars and other backups, so there is not a great deal of concern. But another sign the Russians are not happy with the American attacks on Syria.
All right, Martha Raddatz leading us off. Martha, thank you. The White House saying today this was a carefully targeted strike aimed to send a clear message. So I want to bring in retired Colonel Stephen Ganyard with us tonight, who has flown over that region. And Steve, 59 Tomahawk missiles were launched from the Mediterranean, a safe distance, obviously. They were guided by advanced navigation systems to avoid detection.
That's right, David. When you see in that video those missiles going straight up, soon thereafter there's a little jet engine in each of those cruise missiles that starts, and the missiles drop down low. And so last night they flew over the Mediterranean Sea for somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour to get to their targets. They probably came ashore about over Lebanon to avoid some of the surface-to-air missile systems the Russians have in the northwest of the country, and then turned north and went after 59 very carefully picked targets around this airfield.
But just 30 to 40 minutes, incredible speed, as you point out, Steve. And take us deeper into this military choice that they made here, because we know President Obama considered military action after the chemical attack in 2013, but parts of that plan were far more involved than what we saw overnight.
The Pentagon offered President Trump several choices, David. He could go with a very large strike with a sustained campaign, or he could do something very focused that would send a message. He knew in this strike that he would not degrade the military. He knew that he would not overthrow Assad, but he was making a very clear statement saying that you need to stop gassing your people or we're going to be back in a big way.
All right, Colonel Ganyard with us tonight. Colonel, thank you.